Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barak wa sallam. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله عز وجل وسنة رسوله والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all our dear respected listeners and viewers from around the world. Alhamdulillah, on this beautiful, beautiful day of Jumu'ah, this beautiful day of salawat and remembrance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and on this beautiful month of Ramadan, in this beautiful state of fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to enter into the remembrance and the salawat and the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as is our custom, we will first have a short recap previously on the seerah. In yesterday's episode, we discussed those moments when the Prophet ﷺ, after receiving the revelation, after embracing his mission of prophethood fully, he was yearning for more revelation and yearning for the Wahid and Jibreel to come. And as whilst he was yearning and whilst he was waiting this moment, he felt he yearned for his Lord and he felt the pain of missing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Wahi and Jibreel salam because of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Quran in his heart. And at this moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a beautiful surah al-Duha that we all know, and reminded the Prophet ﷺ that, oh my beloved, I have never left you. In other words, and didn't I? The way I found you as an orphan and always looked after you, sheltered you. No matter what difficulty you face, I will always be there with you. And it's a beautiful surah that we discussed in yesterday's episode. And with these opening moments, the Prophet ﷺ begins to give da'wah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends those initial people that He chose from the people of the whole world to become the first mu'mins, the first Muslims, the first believers at the side of the Prophet ﷺ, as they met in Darul Arqam by night, and they became the students of the Madrasa of the Rasul ﷺ. And as this time progressed, we discussed those first 3 years of the Nubuwwah of the Prophet ﷺ and how he spread Islam slowly but surely towards these people. Majority of them who were the weak ones or the poor ones or the oppressed ones or the slaves, those who had no connection to the dunya, whose heart immediately accepted light of Nubuwwah. And likewise, there were those who had aspects of the dunya, who were rich, who were influential, who were honorable in society per se, but their heart wasn't connected to those things. So their heart immediately accepted Nubuwwah. We have the likes of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu an, and Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan radiallahu an, many of the Sahaba who joined in this beautiful league of the most extraordinary people on the face of this earth, that joined the most extraordinary creation, full stop, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in these opening moments of the seerah, in the opening moments of the mission of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, against the corruption and the dhulm and the evil that was coming upon the world through the shayateen, through the devils, and through those who were shayateen, devils in human form, and through those corrupt leaders of Makkah, and through their activities that were planned in their lair of Dar al-Nadwa, combining all of this to their beautiful madrasa of the Dar al-Arqam, the base of operations where the light of the Nubuwwah would spread from. And as these 3 years beautifully went by, it came that moment where the rumors had surfaced, and there was this question mark saying, who is this man? Who is this person that seems to be challenging the powerful elite of Makkah, the evil league of Makkah? Who is this man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is breaking through without even being seen, breaking through the oppression of Makkah and the injustice and the darknesses of Makkah? Who is the person that is shining lights in this darkness that we have brought upon? And this brought about a tremor between these corrupt leaders of Makkah and between these devils, until it came to that moment where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to give the open call, فَاسْدَعْ بِمَا تُؤْمَرُ, give that open call towards the da'wah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded, towards his mission sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we discussed, began with his family as he was commanded. First, Aqrabin, his closest relatives, he called his uncles and his aunts, and he had them together in one beautiful meal. He hosted them with the generous hospitality, the best of hospitality. And then he told them about the mission, to which in their response, they were all shocked or they were all surprised, but Abu Lahab stood up and just created such a scene that the meal had to be kind of ended and everyone had to disperse. And this became a precursor for the Prophet ﷺ for an even more precious task, that he had to stand in front of the whole of Makkah and say some of the most controversial statements to them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that was haqq. قُلِ الْحَقِّ وَلَوْ كَانَ مَرَّةً. Speak the truth, even if it's bitter, or even if it doesn't, it's going to displease people, or even if it's going to be controversial. If it's going to be for the haqq, and if it's going to be for the pleasure of Allah and for the benefit, then we have to speak the truth. And the Prophet ﷺ, he then alights Mount Safa. He climbs on the Mount Safa, which we said was very high at that moment. And he calls from the various tribes. He calls all the people until the whole of Makkah starts to merge and form into this huge audience. And he gives them the first da'wah, the first call of Islam, to which we have the three main groups. We have the group of the weak and the downtrodden and the oppressed, the people who are oppressed, who had no connection to this dunya, whose heart just accepted that light of hidayah and guidance, and that light of tawheed that their heart was yearning for before they could put words to it. And at the same time, you are on the opposite end. You are those corrupt leaders, and you are those who are so connected to the dunya and its evils that the evil and the shirk and the kufr in their hearts bubbled up, and they began to feel hatred, na'udhu billah, towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his message and his messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And in between, you have those who were, middle class, working class, etc., who were neither here, neither there. They just took it in one year, took it out the other, and just ignored and moved on. But you again hear from this extreme, evil side. You have Abu Lahab, who created such an evil, scene, and started to insult the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in front of everyone. And as this goes by, you saw that many of the masters noticed the twinkle in the eye, the light in the eyes of their slaves, who were seeing this, knowing that this world, we have nothing to do with it, but Allah is our goal. And they shoo them away and make sure that everyone just kind of goes away, until the tribes had formed groups together, and each of the leaders addressed them. And Banu Hashim, when they had been addressed, Abu Talib stood up and said, look, whatever happens, regardless of whether you accept his message or not, Allah had his all, regardless of what happens, we will never let anything happen to him. We will defend him and we will protect him. He is our own. And on the other hand, you had Abu Lahab, also the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, stand up saying, no, listen to him, everyone must listen to him, and they must go against his nephew, and all of this hatred. And he, one split moment, he forgot the love that he had for his nephew all these years, the fact that he was the father-in-law of the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ, all of these beautiful bonds. And by these reasons, he was probably the most closest after Abu Talib to the Prophet ﷺ. And on paper, probably even more closer to Abu Talib, because he was not only shared the relationship of an uncle, but also the father-in-law of his daughters. Through marriage also, they also had rights. And yet, he, in one split second, became such a staunch enemy of his nephew that he loved so much, because of the kufr in his heart, because of the jahiliyyah in his heart. And at this moment, the Banu Hashim went with Abu Talib, and so did the other brothers of the Prophet's father, Abbas and Hamza, all these, they went with Abu Talib, and everyone went against Abu Lahab. And Abu Lahab, stormed off at this. And now, from this moment, we discussed how slowly, the Prophet ﷺ da'wah began spreading throughout Makkah. And the Prophet ﷺ would go through the streets of Makkah openly calling towards La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And the streets of Makkah echoed with the name of Allah and with the call of Tawheed, saying La ilaha. All of these false gods, all of these false deities, and all of these shirk, all of these dhulumat, all of these jahiliyyah, all of it is false. And illallah was being proclaimed. And it's that echo through the streets of Makkah sent shockwaves through the leaders of Quraysh, who couldn't sleep that night, who were awake the entire night. And unbeknown to them, their slaves were risking their lives and risking everything just to reach the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to hear about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Darul Arqam. And until they would rush back before morning and make sure that they weren't caught. And in those sleepless nights, those corrupt leaders would then wake up and come to the Darul Nadwa the next morning. And the main topic is, how are we going to go and how are we going to, combat the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, until they all give their various notions. They can't come to a conclusion. They don't want to, get their hands dirty. So they go to Abu Talib, tell Abu Talib, you have to stop him. And they force Abu Talib to go. And when Abu Talib goes and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sees that the one father figure that has always had my back is now, looks like he's almost abandoning me, just seeing that pain on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's face, Abu Talib said, don't worry, I assure you, no matter what happens, I will never leave you. And I will never let them touch you. I will never let them, I will always stand between you and them. I won't let them come near you. And with this promise, Abu Talib goes back to them and said, do what you want. I will never ever give my nephew, my son up to you. And seeing this, they go back, and it's back to the drawing board, back to the Darul Nadwa. How are we going to challenge this again? And as days by day go by, and as the Prophet ﷺ begins to preach, we see that the Salah is being prayed by various Sahaba in the outskirts of Makkah, in the hidden mountain hilltops. And one day, some of the Sahaba are praying the Salah, and so Abu Sufyan and many of the other leaders see them, and they begin to pelt them and stop them, and a small skirmish comes out of this. And as a result of this, Abu Sufyan and many of the other leaders, they go back and have a meeting. And many of these Sahaba, when they go back to their parents and their family members or their masters, the visible signs of the skirmish are on them, and the word starts to get out that they have become Muslim and they were part of this prayer. And through this, many of the parents of these Sahaba, that we discussed, Ammar and Yasir and Sumayya, radiallahu anhu ajma'in, who were the parents of Sayyidina Ammar ibn Yasir, a small young boy who was one of the earliest Sahaba. They had also become Muslim. And as the Sumayya and Yasir, Ammar was Yasir radiallahu anhu was brought by their son Ammar to Dar al-Arqam to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where they were, enlightened by the message of Nubuwwah, by the message of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the beautiful message of Islam, the beautiful qualities of Islam, and they were, surprised by this entirely new concept to them of the honor and status of women that they had never been given before. All of these things were, happening that we discussed. And Abu Sufyan and the other leaders, they had gone back and started to relate to their cronies, everything they've seen, and winding each other up until they decided that now they're going to have to make some kind of press release or some kind of public statement to thwart, na'udhu billah, the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they all gave their various suggestions. Someone said soothsayer, someone said sorcerer, someone said liar, na'udhu billah, someone said madman, na'udhu billah. And eventually, when each of these, were all falsified by their own hands, they said the only way is that let's call him everything, na'udhu billah. Whatever works, let's just try it. And we cannot let him continue. Astaghfirullah. And this kufr led them to make this plan. And they said, come tomorrow, we're going to go out and make sure that we stop him no matter what, we silence him no matter what, na'udhu billah. And it is at that moment that we left out, and we will continue today. And as is the practice, we request everyone to recite salawat upon our beloved Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam before we enter into the seerah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. So as we say, as the clouds form through and we go back to this beautiful city of Makkah, we see that the Prophet ﷺ is going through the streets of Makkah, saying La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, praying the beautiful verses of the Quran and teaching them the beautiful early revelations of the Quran. The people's hearts were so attached to, and people realized that this is unworldly. This is beyond this world. This is truly from the Lord of the worlds. And likewise with the Prophet ﷺ, you have also now the growing du'a, the growing callers to the call of Islam. You have seen Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who was also going through and calling people to Islam, and you had the other Sahaba who were going and calling towards Islam. As this beautiful mention of Allah is now coming and echoing through the streets of Makkah, almost pleasing even the Kaaba and the inhabitants of this beautiful city, the ground of this beautiful city, the clouds of this beautiful city, the mountains of this beautiful city, that were feeling purified and refreshed again by hearing the name of Allah, echoing and towering above all of the shirk and all of the cries of people who are being oppressed, all of the dhulm, all of the calls to these false deities, all of those things that were happening, all of the adhab that was happening, from above all of those, they get to hear the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they get to hear the call of salah. All of these things were happening, and bringing beauty and nur throughout this, and purifying this beautiful city of Makkah that has been tainted for too long. And whilst this is happening, now you have the Quraysh leaders that geared themselves up, they get themselves ready, and they leave Darul Nadwa, all of them with a mission staunch and hell-bent on one thing, that they will go and find wherever these callers of Islam are, especially the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they will try everything they can to thwart this message, na'udhu billah. And it is at this moment that we'll see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be giving da'wah in the streets, and they would come out and just stand as close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam they can, or on a higher pedestal, and just start screaming anything. And they would start screaming absurdities and calling names to the Prophet ﷺ, saying, don't listen to him, don't listen to him. He's na'udhu billah, a madman. Someone would say he's a sorcerer. Someone would say he's a magician. Someone would say he's a liar. All of these things, they would say all of these things until people would, the scene would be created, people would get scared and just walk away. So wherever the Prophet ﷺ comes, he will just start his message, and someone will come behind him and start screaming all sorts and creating a commotion and just shooing the people away. Until there would be no audience left for the Prophet ﷺ to give his da'wah to. And this continued until one time Abu Hakam ibn Hisham, he actually comes up, and whilst calling names to the Prophet ﷺ, he actually grabs sand and starts hurling sand towards the Prophet ﷺ's beautiful face, so that he can't even continue to speak. So not only is he cowering his voice over and trying to avoid people hearing the sound of da'wah, the sound of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the verses of the Quran, but at the same time he was also hurling dust towards the face of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And yet Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam just continues to give the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to continue reciting the verses of the Quran of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as he can. And this goes on for days upon days until they're trying days upon days, but they're realizing that no matter how hard they're trying, they reconvene day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and eventually they reconvene in Dar Radwan. They're saying, what's the daily report? I'm unsuccessful. I'm unsuccessful. I'm getting more reports of more people becoming Muslim. I'm hearing that even more people are becoming Muslim. And like this, the entire 3rd year and the 4th year of the Prophet ﷺ continues, where the Prophet ﷺ continues giving da'wah, they continue coming back to the drawing board. How can we stop him? How can we stop him? Until months go by and they realize they're not getting anywhere. No matter what they do to silence the message, this message cannot be silenced. This is a word that cannot be silenced. This is haqq that has come. Batil, like we said, falsehood will always bound to perish. They were losing no matter what happened. And the Prophet's message was being successful. He was growing in momentum. No matter what happened, he was being triumphant by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now they started to see even that the strength of his message and his mission is so strong that he's bringing more and more cracks within their power, within their monopoly that they've established over Makkah. And now this is a bigger threat to them. So now they have to step up their game. They have to up the ante. So now they're getting it back into their drawing board. And now it's all new plans, calling him names and trying to silence his mission and obstructing him, causing him harm. All of that hasn't worked. We have to come up with another strategy now. So now it's time that they said, we have to now somehow try and falsify the message. So then they would come as an official delegation, they would come to the Prophet ﷺ, and they would say, go on, we're here to listen to you. And they would pretend as though they actually here to listen to the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ could be giving da'wah to people, and all of a sudden, behind him, this huge entourage of the Quraysh would come with an audience and say, calling to the Prophet ﷺ, we're here, talk with us now. And when they would come, the Prophet ﷺ would have to turn to them, and now his audience is the Quraysh, his biggest arch enemies, the corrupt and leaders of Makkah standing in front of him, direct eye to eye, direct in confrontation with the Prophet ﷺ. And they're saying, so go and tell us then, what is this message that you've come with? So the Prophet ﷺ, sincerely knowing who these people are, with the absolute sincere love and care in his heart, gives them absolute sincere da'wah, knowing that these people have come with no good intentions, yet to give them da'wah, hoping that maybe Allah will give them hidayah, maybe their hearts will soften. And he calls them to La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And they listen to the entire beautiful speech of the Prophet ﷺ that would tremble in our hearts when we were to hear it. And yet after listening to all of them, all of those things, knowing the truth in them, the kufr in their heart was such that their blood began to boil, and rather than accepting the message, they began to try to falsify the message, knowing that now, okay, this is a trap we've tried to set for you. You think we're here to listen to you? Now watch what we do. Na'udhu billah. So what they did, they started to ask absurd questions, saying, okay, if that's the case, and you are speaking of this one God, saying who is the only one God, the creator of all, and all of these other false God, these idols are all false. Lat, Manat, Uzza, Hubal, all of these, you're saying they're all false. They don't exist. They're just man-made. The only one creator and cherisher and the sustainer of all is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whom is your Lord and is the creator of us, and you've been sent as a messenger to him. So if your God is truly true, then why don't you do this for us then? Makkah, we're not very happy with the way Makkah is geographically, and many other things we don't really like about it. So tell him if he is the creator. Na'udhu billah. This is the audacity that they had. Why don't you move? There's too many mountains. Get rid of them. Move these mountains across. Get them somewhere else. So just move them a bit outside, so we've got more of a free space to work with. And just throw in some rivers as well. That would be nice. And just Safa, turn it to gold. Just make the whole mountain into gold. And all these absurd requests are coming in, and they're trying to almost mock the Prophet ﷺ. Like, you think we're listening to you? Na'udhu billah. And this is after the Prophet ﷺ gave them such a sincere bayan and such a sincere call towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards haqq and truth. This is how absurd these people were. And they're doing this and trying to mock and make the people laugh. And the cronies behind are laughing. And the Prophet ﷺ is standing there on his own, with the audience behind him, that he's trying to give da'wah to the people of Makkah. And right in front of him, all these people giving these absurd questions. Now, Allahu alam how exactly that scene was. But this didn't just happen once. It happened continuously. It continued to happen. Until it came to a moment where they decided that now these questions weren't enough. Now they would have to, they started to make these questions even more absurd. And they started to say things to the Prophet ﷺ like, okay, if you are a prophet, then why is there an angel beside you? Why don't you walk with an angel? Why do you walk and talk and dress up and go to the bathroom and eat like normal people. In other words, if you're a messenger, you should be, not like a human being. And this is something that the Quran tells us. Many of the previous Anbiya got the same questions. Like, if you're a messenger, you should be like an angel, in the sense that no human quality should be within you. And they were speaking to who? The greatest of creation. They were only seeing his worldly form. They haven't even seen his heavenly form, because the heavenly form is that with the angels look up to. And even in his earthly forms, the angels knew that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a portrait of perfection. But to these blind eyes who had been blinded by kufr, they couldn't see this. So they're saying, if you're a messenger, you should either have an angel with you that is constantly by your side, and however the imagines work, you should look like this, it should look like that, or you yourself should be above human form or angelic in a sense, with wings or whatever. This is the kind of absurd questions that they used to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or they'd ask him to do things that were superhuman, just for the sake of do it, and we'll believe in you if you do it, knowing that they're not going to believe in it. And this continues to happen, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his heart says, no, I'm not going to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala these things. Allah is beyond these things. Who are we to ask Allah for these things? Allah creates as He wills, and Allah does as He wills. Who are we to question Allah? As the Quran tells us that no one questions Him, He questions everyone else. They were saying to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, question the Lord of all the worlds for these things. This is how absurd they were. And yet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that none of them had any intention of believing. And even if they did, Iman isn't that you believe when you see these things. Iman is that you believe with the hidayah in your heart. Hidayah isn't that you see it and you say, well, now that I've seen it, it's undeniable. Hidayah is that you believe and you know with absolute yaqeen that which the ayah can't perceive and the ear can't see. And this is a matter of love also, and a matter of trust. If two people, parents and child, husband and wife, between them, between the love and the respect that they have for each other, they have an element of trust. And this trust, if it needs to be proven every single time, then it's not trust. It's not trust. You can't say I trust you and say you have to prove yourself every single time. Because if you trust the person, you know that they won't do this or they will do this. If someone puts an allegation on them, saying, you know what, they did this. If you have a trust on that person and you have a respect for that person and you believe in that person, nope, my wife, my parent, my father, my son, they won't do this. You won't put themselves in that position. If you don't trust them, you'll say, prove it. If you show me that you didn't do it and the evidence is there, I'll believe you. That isn't believing, that isn't trust. The true level of Iman is when you love Allah and His Rasul, you know that they have proven themselves and they don't need to prove themselves. You know that they are haqq. That is the truth. These people are asking for evidence and still not going to believe. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't entertain them. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't entertain them. And look at the beauty. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam trusts in Allah, knowing that these people are just causing, frivolously being absurd. In the end, one of them actually says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying, you know what? Even if you went up to the skies with a ladder, saying a ladder was to come down from the heavens, like the clouds came through this, heavenly ladder came down from the seven heavens, the universe came down from the solar system onto the ground, and you climbed up this ladder, went above the clouds, went up above the air and into the seven heavens, and came back with a written statement from Allah saying you're the messenger, he still won't believe in him. Na'udhu billah. This is them kind of after they realize that the absurd questions they're not managing to wind up, they're not managing to get to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is what they foil their own plans. So you know what? We were just asking this question to be stupid, in other words. It's not, even if you went and they actually did something like beyond what we were asking, they still wouldn't believe. This is the level of kufr that they had. But look at the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That same person that said this, he didn't even give up on him. And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept giving him dawah until he became Muslim. The person who swore an oath that if you were to go up and a ladder was to come from the heavens, and you went up and brought a written declaration from Allah, he still wouldn't believe. That person, the Prophet ﷺ never gave up on, and he kept giving him da'wah until in the incident of Fatih Makkah, years later, he became Muslim at the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. That is the heart of the Prophet ﷺ that never gave up. And that shows us that we have no excuse to give up on anyone. We are those who give up on Muslims, we give up on our own families, think they won't change. We give up on our own societies. And the Prophet ﷺ never gave up on a person that swore an oath that he would never believe, even if the Prophet ﷺ made such a miracle come true. That is the heart of the Prophet ﷺ. And with this, he continued to give them da'wah. Even though they actually increased in their absurdity, they didn't stop, and they continued and continued until one night they had enough. They said, right, we've had enough of him sallallahu alaihi wasallam going through the streets of Makkah, and no matter what we're doing, they down and they're saying no matter what we're doing, we're failing. our numbers seem to be going down and his seem to be going up. More people are following him. And now it's become a talk of the town that more of the weak and more of our slaves have become Muslim. And they were hiding it from us. And these leaders, they couldn't tolerate that their slaves were getting a life finally. Their slaves were doing what is haqq. And if this happens, then their monopoly and their oppression against the weak was going to be, Allah was going to dissolve that. And all of their power and all of their oppression and all of their evil was about to end. Their plans were about to be foiled. So they said, in the darkness of this night, they had this meeting and they get so frustrated and said, enough is enough. Let's all of us go right now. So they all stand up from this Dar Nadwa, they walk out and they all go outside near the birthplace of the Prophet ﷺ. There's a mountain on the Jabal Abu Qabais. They go to that mountain and they call out to the Prophet ﷺ loudly and disrespectfully. And the Prophet ﷺ just comes to them respectfully. And as they are calling, they make a loud commotion and a loud scene until people sort of come out of their homes. People sort of come out of their houses and an audience is formed. And again, this audience forms all the way around. And within the inner circle of this huge audience, you have on one side Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, standing on his own. And opposite him, you have all of the Quraysh leaders. Abu al-Hakam ibn Hisham, Walid ibn Mughira, Asim ibn Wa'il, Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, Abu Sufyan ibn Harb. All of these people are standing there and their cronies and all of their evil supporters behind them, their gang members standing behind them. All in confrontation with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam standing on his own. And he looks straight within their eyes with absolute honor, showing no signs of fear. And when he greets them, they say to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we have had enough of you. And they start falsifying the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he's a liar, na'udhu billah, he's a madman, sorcerer, all of these things. And they say, you know what? If you are a prophet, we're going to give you one chance to prove that you aren't a liar, you aren't a madman, you aren't all of these things. We've asked you for many, many things and you've not fulfilled any of our requests. You haven't, brought the mountains outside of Makkah. You haven't given us rivers. You haven't turned Safa into gold. You haven't done any of these things. So now we're going to ask you for one last chance, one last miracle. You do this, you're a prophet. You don't do this, then we prove that na'udhu billah, you're a liar and astaghfirullah, and you're a madman and you're a sorcerer. All of these things. And the stakes have been put right up. And they turn to their cronies laughing. And they say to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is the end, in other words. And all people of Makkah witness that this is the moment, in other words, we were triumphant, na'udhu billah, and we defeated, na'udhu billah, not just the messenger, but the message, and our creator, na'udhu billah. That was what this absurdity that they had because of the kufr and jahiliyyah in their hearts. And no doubt the driving force behind them, Iblis, Shaitan. Shaitan led them up to this moment. And now you have this climactic showdown between the Quraysh, all as a gang, and the Prophet ﷺ on his own, surrounded. And there's no way to escape this. And the Prophet ﷺ doesn't even know what they're going to ask. And remember, this is early Seerah. This is early Nubuwah. The Prophet ﷺ isn't even at the highest stage of Nubuwah or the highest stage of Wahi. He's still in these early stages. And he ﷺ doesn't know what they're going to ask. And he ﷺ isn't even fully acquainted with what miracles and what can be performed with this Nubuwah. And at this moment, they look around them. And when the Prophet ﷺ accepts their challenge, saying, I'm listening, in other words, they look around them and they think, what are they going to say? What are they going to say? Until they look up to the sky and they have this evil grin on their face, and they reach their face forward out of disrespect and this evil gleaming smile that they had. And they look to the Prophet ﷺ and point up to look at the moon and look to him with this evil grin. And the Prophet ﷺ is now wondering what they're alluding to. And they say to him, that moon that you see, split the moon in two, and if you do, we'll believe you're a prophet. And then they go back and they look at each other and start laughing in the face of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is innocently standing there on his own. And now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stands in this moment with such an impossible challenge. All of this audience are standing surrounding him. He's on his own with no one but Allah by his side. And all of these people are laughing in his face. So giving him this impossible challenge, saying, split the moon in two and we will believe that you are a messenger. And knowing that this is impossible and no person can do this, they start to laugh, saying, you know what, we've already won. Na'udhu billah. And whilst they are laughing, Abu al-Hakam ibn Hisham is laughing with such an evil, disgusting way. He's gloating and laughing, turning to Walid ibn Mughira, who is also laughing, turning to Asim ibn Wa'il and all these people. And whilst they are laughing, suddenly they began to hear a shake in the people, who are a gasp in the people, until they turn and they look up to the sky. And what do they see? The Prophet ﷺ at that moment lifts his finger up, points it towards the sky with absolute trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, And what happens? He is our Nabi, he is our Rasul. That, as the books mention, he is the greatest of all the messengers. He is the Imam al-Mursaleen, the leader of all the prophets. And if every prophet could perform a miracle, and miracles galore, he will perform all those and more. Because he sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed every miracle that every prophet ever did. For if Adam alayhi salam was the father of all mankind, then he became so by the name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As'alu bihaqi sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if Musa alayhi salam was to split the sea by his staff's action, then our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would split the moon simply by his fingers' interaction. Because at that moment when he pointed to the moon, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala split the moon in two. When shakkal qamar, as it mentions in the Quran, in Surah Qamar, that this moon was split in two, and those people gasped as they saw the moon tremble and shake as it began to split in half and move into two pieces, separated from each other. As the finger of the Prophet ﷺ gave it that interaction, just by the ishara, just by the interaction and the gesture and the point of the Prophet ﷺ's beautiful finger, that he entered into this world pointing up to the heavens to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah, indicating La ilaha illallah. That finger, that blessed finger of the Prophet ﷺ pointing to the moon and simplify his fingers interaction. The moon split in two by the will and permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at this moment, that evil laugh of these evil corrupt leaders turned into a big frown as they are shocked, eyes gasp, eyes popping out, looking at the people around, looking at each other, thinking, what's just happened? The impossible has just happened. And they turn to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with this beautiful gleaming face, looking at the moon, splitting at his instruction. And they turn to the people and they turn to each other, thinking, what's happening? And as the moon is splitting more and more and more, people are gasping more and more and more. And the nur and the power of the Prophet ﷺ is illuminating even more as it gleams on his face, the light of Nubuwwah and the light of his beauty and the tajalli of the power that was within him through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these people's faces are darkened more and more, and their frowns grow more and more. And as the Prophet ﷺ gains triumph, and as he is victorious and triumphant by the will and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these people have completely lost and have been defeated. And when they can't take this any further, they look towards each other and realize, we can't let this happen. Our plans have failed. These people are actually gasping and are in awe at his nubuwwah. They start screaming and immediately, nudging each other. What are you looking at? Because even if their cronies were so amazed at this, they start nudging each other, saying, stop looking at it. And all of them start to scream and shout until people's eyes are distracted away from that beautiful sight, and they turn back and they say, oh no, sorcery, magic. He's cast a spell upon us. And they start doing all these stupid, crazy, absurd talk that they used to do. The sign that they asked for, the miracle that they asked for is happening. They made a promise. And again, what did they do? They turned back on the promise. They called the Prophet ﷺ liar. But what happened? He ﷺ was the most truthful of all. And they became liars because they went back on their own words. They said they would believe if this happened. It happens, and they lied. They called the Prophet ﷺ a madman, na'udhu billah. Or what happened? Now they're screaming out like madmen. They called the Prophet ﷺ a sorcerer. Now what's happening? They're screaming chants of sorcery, as though they're bewitched. That was the way Allah showed them that how He would dishonor them and how He would honor His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would always be with him, as Allah said in Wadduha, saying, no matter what happens, no matter whenever you feel alone, I'm always with you, oh my beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showing how He was always there with His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And at this moment, they deny it, and they realize that they need to get away because of how ashamed they are. So they keep screaming these chants, and they just run away and disperse and force others to disperse, leaving the Prophet ﷺ in all his glory, and those sincere believers who stayed behind with tears in their eyes, saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. I bear witness and I testify that there is no God other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator and cherisher and Lord of all, the Lord of the worlds, and my creator. And I witness that you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are his slave and his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And again, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was triumphant. And as this happens, this beautiful moon comes back in its place, almost as though it comes back smiling at the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying, just as when you were a child and I used to move at your interaction, even now I move at your instruction, O my beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As was related by the uncle of the Prophet Abbas, when we discussed in the earlier episodes of the Seerah. And at this moment, the Prophet ﷺ now goes back to his beautiful home, to his beautiful wife, Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha, and his beautiful children, and his beautiful family. And the Quraysh go back to their homes, taking off their hats and throwing it on the ground, absolutely angry and screaming and shouting, until the following morning they come back in the Darul Nadwa with their blood, boiling, and unable to show their faces in front of the people, absolutely dishonest, dishonored, and for the first time in their life, they don't know how to, even show their faces in public because of how big of a loss they've felt. This one question mark that they were trying to find for 3 years, that became manifest as the most beautiful of faces, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hero and the champion of Makkah, has become triumphant, and he's defeated them out in open, in the brightness of the moonlit night. So what do they do now? They don't know how to challenge this. So they say the only way is we have to continue. They angry at each other, thinking, what happened? And at this moment, they, long story short, they eventually come to the conclusion that we have to make sure that we have to go out and we have to deny this as much as possible. So they go out and they keep denying it. They keep denying it. They keep telling the people, saying, oh, you know what? I couldn't sleep at night. It was such sorcery, such magic. We have to, he's so dangerous, na'udhu billah. And they were instructing people to stay away, fear mongering, spreading propaganda, making the hero look like the villain, astaghfirullah, making the good look like bad. This was the media that they controlled, and they made sure that they labeled the Prophet ﷺ as the one who was wrong, na'udhu billah, that day. And they spread rumors to those who hadn't seen that beautiful miracle. And they started to instill fear in the realms of people, until people would be scared of the Prophet ﷺ. But whilst they are doing this, as we know, when there were always travelers going in and out of Makkah, and whenever a traveler returns, there was a signal or some kind of drums or something that would call out on the return of certain travelers. As we saw when the Prophet ﷺ was coming back with Seerah, on the business venture with Sayyidah Khadija, that there was a way that they'll be informed, and there's information coming that a new group of people has come, and this causes a commotion in Makkah, because normally when a group of travelers come back, the audience and the commotion is only by those people who are related to them or connected to them. But over here, people are running in crowds, thinking these people will come back, have some great news for us. And the people of Makkah start to go on until the Quraysh are like, what's going on? We're trying to talk to people and spread this, in our own different groups. All of the leaders went to different places of Makkah and got an audience, and they're trying to say that don't listen to the Prophet ﷺ, this, is so sorcery. And all of a sudden, their audience is dispersing, and they're being troubled by this loud noise. So they all go to have a look at what's going on. And what do they see? That these travelers who have come back from Makkah, not one, but various groups are coming back, and they are about to relate an amazing incident that happened with them. Saying, you know what? We were traveling in the open desert sky, vast night sky, and as we approached Makkah, we saw something amazing. You're not going to believe us. You might think we're lying, but we looked up to the sky and we saw the moon split in two. And at this moment, as they are narrating this with so much awe and so much amazement, the Muslims and the believers have tears in their eyes, and the people turn to Abu Hakam ibn Hisham, As ibn Wa'il, Walid ibn Mughira, and all of these people have their eyes popping out, looking down in absolute anger and absolute anguish at the loss, unable to sole losers, unable to bear the loss that they have had at the win and the triumph of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to his messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that day. And now this makes them even more angry. So they come back, they reconvene in their Dar Nadwa. Day upon day goes by, and now their anger has reached an all-time high, saying, now this is it, no more Mr. Nice Guy, as if they were even being nice. But now their anger and their concern for their evil plans and the blindness of their jahiliyyah and kufr was such that they even started to forget about their public image. And now it was just at any cost, they couldn't control their hatred, and they couldn't control the evil that was within them. So what do they do now? At this moment now, they begin to physically, show their anger at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They begin to be even more dishonorable in the presence of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, such that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be walking, he would be minding his own business, saying not a word to them, hurting no one, and they would start to try and do, bullying antics to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would walk past and they would start to, say whispers and murmurs to each other, as though they're speaking about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and pointing and laughing to him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they would do these kind of things. And no doubt this happened to messengers before, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed and consoled the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would walk past, and then they would some of them, like Walid ibn Mughira famously, would come to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and say, with one of the other leaders of the Quraysh, such as Umayyah bin Khalaf or one of the others, and they say, oh, what new revelation have you got today? In a mocking tone. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, out of his sincerity, even though they were mocking them, he'd recite whatever new revelations and verses would come, thinking maybe the barakah of the Quran would soften their hearts. And what would they do? The moment the Prophet started speaking to them, they'd start now ignoring him and talk to each other as though he's invisible to them, and just say, oh, do you hear something? Do I hear something? No. What's the weather like today? And they'd start laughing when the Prophet ﷺ would just have to feel brokenhearted and disheartened and just walk away. And they continued to do this. And the funny thing was, every time they did this, the Prophet ﷺ's sincerity in his heart, he never gave up on them. Knowing how they're going to mock him, he still went there and still recited the verses. Maybe Allah will give them hidayah. To these people that treated him so absurdly. This is how they started to, give, and many verses of the Quran were revealed regarding the likes of Walid ibn Mughira and many of the people that were, hurting the Prophet ﷺ. You have the likes of Umayyah ibn Khalaf, from the leaders of Quraysh. We said Umayyah ibn Khalaf, he comes and what he would do is he would come and start really winking gestures and do things like this to harm and insult the Prophet ﷺ. And it was regarding him that the famous surah, Surah Hamazah, that surah that we all know and we all know so well, that entire surah was regarding him and the likes of him, saying, woe to all of those backbiters and those who try to insult and mock my messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in other words. And these verses were revealed every time they did something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was always there consoling his messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying, don't worry, let them continue, let them do what they want. You continue with your mission, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And like this, they started to show their hatred and show the dishonorable nature that was within them openly. Until days went by and they couldn't contain themselves. So eventually, days go by, and in the Darul Nadwa, they're having meeting upon meeting, until one of the days, Nasr ibn Harith and Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, two new characters that we have to enter into the seerah. These two are like, that entourage and those cronies of Abu Hakam ibn Hisham, Umayyah ibn Khalaf, Ubay ibn Khalaf, all of these evil leaders of Makkah, and not just the core leaders, but like we said, the heads of the tribe, who also, they weren't the overall leadership of Makkah, but they were in the same stage. All of these people who were part of this one big gang, this evil, the legion of doom, if you will. These people, all of their cronies. From them, you have Nasr ibn Harith and Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, who are the worst of these gangs. They say that what we'll do is we will go to Yathrib, where there is an abundance of Jewish and Christian scholars, people of the book and the scripture, who are well versed with prophethood. What we'll do is we'll go there and do some research and find a way that we can na'udzubillah again try and falsify the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they knowing that this message can never be falsified. So then Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt and Nasr ibn Harith, long story short, they traveled to Yathrib as on a secret mission on behalf of this evil government of Quraysh. They go to Yathrib, they begin speaking with the people of Yathrib, until the people of Yathrib eventually tell them that, what, everything you've told us is actually proving just towards one thing. It all leads towards one way. He seems like he is the final messenger. No doubt. And naturally this brings anger to them. Think that's not what they want to hear. But the Jewish people say, no doubt, neither is it what they want to accept, even though it's not what they've heard, because the messenger didn't come from them. So then now they start to give them ammunition, saying, okay, we'll help you. You know what? Common truce. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, na'udhu billah. So you know what? On this one, we'll work together. And these people give them three things, saying, you know what? Go back and ask him three questions. Number one, asking about the story of the people of the cave. Saying, who are the people of the cave? Then ask him regarding Dhul Qarnayn. Saying, who was Dhul Qarnayn? And what was his story? And then lastly, asking him about the soul, the ruh. And then they said, here's the answer to the test. If he tells you the story of the cave, and this is the details he gives you, then that is a right answer. If he tells you regarding Dhul Qarnayn and there's certain details that they mentioned, right answer. And if he says anything about the ruh, wrong answer. But if he says regarding the ruh that there is no answer and only Allah knows, correct. So they give them the question, they give them the exam, the marking sheet, if you will. And with this, Nasr ibn Harith and Uqba feel like they've got ammunition. So they get up, shake hands, and they race it back to Makkah really happily. Enter into Darul Nadwa, sometime later, when they arrive back and say, look, we've got it. This is our plan. This is the blueprint. They open the sheets across and say, look, this is what we're going to do. So now all of the leaders of Quraysh come back. Third attempt from the many various attempts, third big attempt now. They come again, and again call people, create a commotion, audience is surrounded. The Prophet stands there on his own, and all of these people confront him again and say, you know what? Fine, you're a messenger. Well, we've got the questions for you. Go back and get these answers. Number one, what happened to the people of the cave? Just, that's it. No more details. Just people of the cave. Cave, vague. People, vague. People of the cave. Who are they? What happened to them? Number two, who is Dhul Qarnayn? Who is Dhul Qarnayn? What happened to him? And number three, what can you tell us about the ruh? Answer these three questions if you truly are a prophet. And at this moment, the Prophet ﷺ, He hears their questions and he simply says to them, I will give you the answer tomorrow. And at this moment they say, fine, we'll come back here tomorrow and see what you have for us. And they walk away feeling really, really chuffed with themselves. Saying, this time we've got him, na'udhu billah. And what happens? 24 hours elapse, and this is the honor of the Prophet ﷺ. He would never ever speak unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him revelation. Because that was the fear. The messenger of Allah had that fear regarding the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are many of us who just speak without knowledge. And Allah forgive all of us, especially myself, who have no right to be speaking about the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like I said, we just hope this is just a remembrance and the durood sharif towards our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam for our hearts. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes back 24 hours later, anticipating this wahi. And like clockwork, these people all come back, meet up, same place, same time. They get together and they say to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, come on, where's our information? What happened with the people of the cave? Who is Dhul Qarnayn? What can you tell us about the Ruh? And at this moment, the Prophet ﷺ has to stand there and he has no answer to give to them because no revelation has come. And he could have said anything. He could have made something up. He could have lied. But that wasn't on the honor of the Prophet ﷺ. And he wouldn't lie about worldly things. Why would he lie about heavenly akhirah, let alone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his word? So the Prophet ﷺ didn't say anything. And upon his silence, these people rejoiced and they felt like, that's it, we've won. This is our ultimate victory. They started to cheer and crowd and walk away, chanting and gallivanting as though they had won. And they started to convince the people, saying, see, today we prove to you, today we prove to you. And they continued going. And the Prophet ﷺ just did sabr upon this. Until the third day goes, and the same thing happens again. Fourth thing, and many days go by, and some books say almost 10 days go by, until every day, 9 days, 10 days, they revile the Prophet ﷺ. For 9 days, they convince people that that's it, we prove now that he is the messenger. And then until then, after those days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals a verse and reveals the beautiful verses that accompanying it of a surah that we all know too well, known as Surah Al-Kahf, the story of the cave. And that surah contains 3 beautiful stories. One of the opening stories which is the story of the people of the cave, Ashabul Kahf, the people of the youth of the cave, and everything that happened to them. And the story goes in detail, even more than what the people of Yathrib knew. And every single thing is exactly as proven and attested. And even goes and proves what they had wrong. It goes and corrects them, saying, by the way, even what you had, that's actually wrong. Even your marking sheet has this wrong. I'm going to correct the marking sheet, let alone answer the question. Regarding Dhul Qarnayn, this is exactly what happened regarding him. His background, his story, this is what happened. And regarding the Ruh, that is from the matters of my Lord, and no one knows them except him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Answering every single question with flying marks, and even correcting their exam paper. Saying, by the way, teacher, by the way, questioner, by the way, examiners in Yathrib, by the way, Quraysh, that marking thing, that thing that you've got on your marking sheet, it's wrong. This is what's actually correct. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the verse of the Surah Al-Kahf, saying, you never ever say that I will do something tomorrow except you say, InshaAllah. And because the Prophet ﷺ at that moment, and you have to understand the pressure of that moment, because the Prophet ﷺ at that moment had said, I will tell you tomorrow on that first day. But the words InshaAllah were mentioned. A lesson was given to all of us, saying, always say InshaAllah. And the ulama say, even if you remember days after, just say InshaAllah for that thing that I said. Always say InshaAllah, because with the power of that InshaAllah, Allah will make your task easy, and Allah will make it happen. Because only by the will of Allah will every single thing happen. And that beautiful Surah Al-Kahf, that is such a great blessing for us, that the person who reads it every Jum'ah, and for those of us who haven't read it yet, we have till Maghrib, we must make sure we recite Surah Al-Kahf. And if not the entire Surah Al-Kahf, at least the first 10 ayat. From the beginning, the first 10 ayat, and the last 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. The person who reads this, the Prophet ﷺ told us that that person will be protected. He or she will be protected from all of the fitan and the trials of the end of times. Even Dajjal will not be able to affect him, and Allah will protect us from the fitna of these times that we're living in. And even Dajjal was to come, Allah protect all of us. We will be protected by the light and the beauty of these beautiful first and last 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. And that is something that inshallah every one of us should have the habit of. And if we don't, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant and make dua this beautiful moment of Friday in this beautiful seerah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Allah grant us all triumph and protection and tawfiq to recite these beautiful verses of Surah Al-Kahf, firstly myself and everyone for the rest of our lives inshallah, and grant us protection and acceptance through it inshallah. And with this, the Qurayshis are now, even that 10-day glory that they had is come to a foil, and they've lost again in front of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that would always win. Because he was Al-Fatih. He was the one who Allah would always give that conquering notion to. He would always conquer above his enemies. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And as we said, Sir Antal Mansur, go wherever you are, because you will always be assisted by me. You'll always be victorious and with my victory and assistance. As is one week, all the week, but one riwayah of what was some of the words that were mentioned on the seal of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So now you can imagine, after all of these fails and many, many other attempts, the time doesn't allow us to go into, took place until the failure continued and continued and continued, until eventually now it reaches another stage where day upon day goes, and this 4th year and 5th year of the Nubuwah enters, and the Prophet ﷺ continues giving da'wah to people. And these people, the Quraysh, continue having their meetings in Dar al-Nadwa, trying plan after plan and getting foiled again and again and again, until 5 beautiful years of Nubuwah have come, and the Prophet ﷺ is triumphant, and many of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ have grown, and many of the people of Makkah have accepted the message of the Prophet ﷺ. And to this, the Quraysh are completely in anger now, and they are in the Dar al-Nadwa, they're trying to work out what's going on, why are they failing, and they're seeing that there's even more cracks, and their whole monopoly is crumbling before their eyes, and they don't know what to do. To the point that they're talking to each other. It's like, we can't even do anything anymore. We can't even plan our future plots. We can't even move forward, because every day all we're trying to do is fight up against Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we're just losing. We're not getting anywhere. And at this moment, whilst they're in this anger and rage, something strange and new happens. The Prophet ﷺ, goes into the haram, and the Prophet ﷺ stands at the haram and he begins to pray salah. And we must remember that at this moment, salah wasn't prayed towards the direction of the Kaaba. It was prayed towards the direction of Masjid al-Aqsa, towards Palestine, towards the direction of Sham. But the Prophet, so the salah could be prayed anywhere. But the Prophet ﷺ, out of love for the haram and knowing the sanctity of the haram, the Prophet ﷺ comes to the haram and he begins to pray salah in the haram, facing towards Masjid al-Aqsa. But the Prophet ﷺ had a beautiful habit. He would pray towards the Rukn al-Yamani, the direction that the Rukn, the corner of the Kaaba. The Kaaba's 4 corners have names, and the Rukn al-Yamani was the one that was faced towards Yemen. The Prophet ﷺ would stand behind the Kaaba, facing towards this Rukn al-Yamani. And why he would pray here is because when he faced in this direction, he was facing the Kaaba, but he was actually facing towards Sham and Masjid al-Aqsa also. So he was still facing the Qibla, but he was also facing the Kaaba and praying his salah in that direction, in the direction of the beautiful Kaaba, but also the Qibla of Masjid al-Aqsa. And while the Prophet ﷺ is praying this salah, one of the cronies of Quraysh sees this, and he comes running into Dar al-Nadwa, bodies in and saying, "Do you guys want to know what just happened? Muhammad ﷺ is praying in Haram. He's praying his salah and his form of ibadah in our Haram. Where all of our idols and our power lies, he's entered into our territory." And to all of this, all of the Quraysh leaders, blood boils, and they stand up and march outside until they see this moment where the Prophet ﷺ is praying outside of the Kaaba. And now this reaches their anger to an all-time high. Now their blood boils, literally boils out of the pan, if you will, and they can't take it anymore. And from this day onwards, the hostility to the Prophet ﷺ grows to such an extent that whenever they would see the Prophet ﷺ, they would never ever stop, but they would harm him. And what did they do? These people go up to the Prophet ﷺ, and at that moment they start to warn the Prophet ﷺ, but the Prophet ﷺ is in salah, so he doesn't respond to them. He continues his salah, and when he finishes his salah, they begin to warn him, and they say, "How dare you?" And they start to swear and insult the Prophet ﷺ. All of them surrounding him, and him ﷺ standing on his own, and they are all warning him, saying, "Don't you ever dare come back here, na'udhu billah," pointing fingers and insults at the Prophet ﷺ, at the pure Rasul ﷺ, and giving him warning, saying he's never allowed to come back here again, and insults and threats and all sorts. Until the Prophet ﷺ leaves innocently from this beautiful haram that has been tainted by all of these idols. But for the first time in years, someone has done sujood and worshipped the one Almighty Allah on these grounds. And the effect of that salah gave such a tremor into the heart of the Quraysh that even after the Prophet ﷺ left, they could feel the evil cracking and the Jahiliyyah cracking and within them, because they stood in a haram that was no longer tainted, that started to feel the purity running through its lands, through its ground. And the Kaaba was being honored that day, subhanAllah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by the sujood and salah of the Prophet ﷺ that took place after so long. And with this now, the Prophet ﷺ, even though he faced such threats and such insults at them, he neither stopped his message. He continued to propagate his message throughout the walls of Makkah and throughout the streets of Makkah. for which he was being ridiculed, and for which they continued to go out and continue to swear at him, continue to obstruct his message, and continue to give him difficulty. But at the same time, the Prophet ﷺ's heart, who loved that haram so much, and whose heart was being cold to that haram, that magnitude of the Kaaba, he neither did he stop praying at that haram, and he would go and he would continue to pray at the haram until the Makkans, the Qurayshis, who had now stepped up their game and even now become so dishonorable. Even they didn't even care if the public watched. They didn't even care about their reputation anymore. They would do anything to harm the Prophet ﷺ. And they increased in their hostility such that at one moment the Prophet ﷺ was just giving da'wah. He was calling to the people to La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And suddenly the cronies of Quraysh, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt and many of his cronies, these henchmen and these goons of these evil corrupt leaders of Makkah surrounding the Prophet ﷺ. They literally jumped and surrounded the Prophet ﷺ, who's on his own. And what did they do? Astaghfirullah, they began to pull the Prophet ﷺ from all different angles. And whilst he's being pulled and shoved, they began to hit the Prophet ﷺ. So he's literally being jumped and surrounded by this group who are pushing and shoving, pulling him, and then other people are punching and hitting him ﷺ. And other people are throwing stones at him ﷺ, and his blood starts to come on the beautiful face and body of the Prophet ﷺ. Other people are throwing sand, dirt, picking dirt off the ground and throwing it at his blessed face ﷺ, until particles enter his beautiful mouth, into his eyes and his nose and his face and his beard ﷺ, whilst there's blood on his face. So you have blood, dust, stones, pebbles, punches, kicks, pulls, and to top all of that up, one of the evil ones took a cloth and then threw it from behind onto the neck of the Prophet ﷺ and began to pull it and strangle the Prophet ﷺ. And you have to, as painful as it is, you have to imagine that scene where all of these evil people, all of these oppressive people have surrounded the Prophet ﷺ, and he's on his own, being pulled from every angle, being strangled literally like this, strangled from behind, being punched with dust and blood all over him ﷺ. And at this moment, he doesn't even fight back, even though he knew the power that lied within him. And he doesn't even curse them. He doesn't even do anything to them until the Sahaba, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, comes to the rescue of the Prophet ﷺ, and these people disperse, leaving the Prophet ﷺ on the ground with blood coming from his blessed body ﷺ. This is just one of the incidents of how they started to treat the Prophet ﷺ. Not once, not twice, but for days upon days, for years. This is how they would treat our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this continued until one day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was in his salah, and he went into the hatim that we discussed was actually part of the Kaaba that had become marked but open at this stage. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hatim, he's praying salah. And imagine, for those who have been to Umrah, imagine that place of hatim, and our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam praying in that hatim, praying his salah. And what happens? Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt, he comes and he takes a cloth, and whilst the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is praying, he stands behind him, and again, like happened before, he yanks this cloth over the blessed head of the Prophet ﷺ onto the neck and begins to pull and strangle the Prophet ﷺ, who is in salah. He's praying in salah and he's being strangled while he's performing his salah. And then when eventually lets go, and when the Prophet ﷺ goes in ruku, this person starts to attack the Prophet ﷺ until when the Prophet ﷺ goes into sujood. And when he's in the state of sajda, we know that when you're in the state of sajda, what happens? The 7 limbs of a believer are on the ground. Your hands, your palm is on the ground. Your forehead is on the ground. Your neck is on the ground. Your entire body, your knees and your feet are resting on the ground. All of your body is secure on the ground. But there's one part that is just dangling in midair, that isn't secured onto the ground, and that is your neck. When you go into sujood, your neck is just in the air, freestyle. It is hovering in the air. There's nothing to support, and it's in a very, very fragile position. And this evil person, and that in that state, when the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in the sajda, he stamped on the neck of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He stamped on the neck with his foot. He began to stamp repeatedly on the neck of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam while he's in sajda. And you have to imagine that pain that would have been in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and how painful it is to see that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam innocently took all of this. Why? For us, so we could say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So we could be those unworthy ummatis that would forget him sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that wouldn't even know his seerah, that wouldn't even know his shama'il, that wouldn't even know what he went through, and would be lazy to pray salah. That is our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the pain, just few examples of what he went through. To be stamped in sujood. And to make it matters worse, one of the days the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam again is in the haram, he's praying his salah. And the cronies of the evil leaders of Quraysh see this sight. And when they see the Prophet ﷺ praying, they quickly turn and they go to their henchmen, saying, you know what? Which one of you is man enough to go and do as I say? Which one of you will go and get something really, really disgusting and throw it on Muhammad ﷺ? Like always, the same typical names. One of whom is Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt. Same person again. This evil, wretched person stands up and he runs. This, arch goon, if you will, the main goon, the right-hand goon of the Ubay bin Khalaf. He stands up and said, you know what? Now he'll go and do it. He goes and he runs and he finds the rotting ruins of a camel's intestines. And the riwayah say different things, but camel's intestines and camel's inside, they're rotted. And you have to remember that when a camel or any carcass or blood carrion has been in the heat, it starts to rot and it starts to become really, really wretched and decrepit and disgusting. There's all sorts of flies and insects within it, and there's all sorts of germs and all sorts of blood and disgusting bacteria within it, and the stench is unbearable because of how it's been broiling in this heat. And on top of that, these kind of things, even the blood starts to solidify and starts to become like jelly, and it starts to stick to whatever surface it goes on. So this evil, wretched person takes this, he grabs all of this in a secure way, and he comes running up to the Prophet ﷺ, who is performing salah. So now you have to imagine this scene. You have the haram, you have the idols, you have the Dar al-Nadwa. And outside of the Dar al-Nadwa, you have all of these Quraysh leaders standing with pomp and glory, sitting there, watching this scene. And in the distance, you have Muhammad ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ, praying salah. And you have Uqba ibn Mu'ayt, who's just standing there with this sheet and smiling at them, gesturing to them, saying, yep, get ready. And these people are laughing and smiling, saying, go on, do it. Astaghfirullah. Because of the evil. And the innocent Prophet ﷺ was just praying his salah, about to anticipate what's about to happen to him, thinking, what are they going to do to me now? And he waits. And this is the strange one. He waits. He's standing there. He's all right up and he waits with that evil grin on his face, that mischievous grin. And he waits till the Prophet ﷺ goes in ruku. And he waits till the Prophet ﷺ comes up from ruku. And he waits till the Prophet ﷺ goes in sajda. And he takes that and he quickly throws and empties the whole disgusting intestines, the blood, the insects, the boiling germs, and all of those disgusting rotted parts of the camel all over the Prophet ﷺ, and it begins to spread through the body of the Prophet ﷺ onto the blessed neck, onto the blessed ears, the hair, on the skin of the Prophet ﷺ. And because of the heat, it begins to solidify and turn into jelly, making the Prophet ﷺ's body almost frozen, sticking to his skin and becoming such a disgusting feeling. The insects walking all over him, while he ﷺ is in this innocent state of sajda, absolutely helpless, and wondering, why are you doing this to me? I haven't done anything to you. Why are you doing this to me? And in this state, he ﷺ has to stay there, and he can't even stand up from sujood. And Uqba ibn Mu'ayt bursts into laughter, and Abu al-Hakam ibn Hisham, and all of these other people, the cronies of Quraysh, begin to burst into laughter. And they continue laughing and laughing and laughing until Uqba runs back to his cronies, and they're all pointing and laughing at the innocent Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that is down on the ground in the state of sajda, in absolute submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with all of these disgusting things running down his body, solidifying and making his whole back feel like cardboard, unable to move. And at this moment, an innocent 4 or 5-year-old Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha, the daughter of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sees this scene. And like we discussed before, when a child sees their parent in harm, they begin to cry and they get so worried. So this innocent Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha runs up at this stage, even before Uqba runs away. And it wasn't just Uqba on his own. There were also other people surrounding the scene that were throwing other things on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And at this state, Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha runs up to these people and tries to stop them, saying, what are you doing? Stop this crying. The innocent Fatima al-Batul al-Zahra radiallahu anha, who the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam loves so much, on top of the pain that he is in, he has to hear the screams and cries of Fatima radiallahu anha. And he can't do anything to even stop her being harmed in the state that he's in. He's in his absolute helpless state in sujood. And they are continually doing this to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now they come back and they're throwing even more things on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And say the Fatima is trying to take off with her bare hands the love of a daughter for the father. She's trying to take off as much as she can. And when these people come back and throw more, she's trying to stop them. And she's trying to, this innocent girl is trying to defend against these heartless fiends, these heartless goons that are even having mercy on a young innocent child. And the most angelic innocent of faces, Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha. And they continue this until what happens? When she's trying to defend them, she gets in the way, and one of the Qurayshis comes and slaps the innocent Fatima radiallahu anha in the face. And when the pain of that slap, the sound of that slap, and the cry and scream over the Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha comes, that hurts the Prophet ﷺ in sujood even more than everything that's happening to him. Until the Prophet ﷺ is in such a state that he's shook up by this cry of Fatima, and he can't even do anything to defend her. And Sayyidah Fatima, realizing the pain that she's in and her helplessness, she runs from that place and she runs back to her home trying to find help, crying with the marks on her blessed cheek of this slap from this evil, wretched person. And she runs and runs and runs until she bumps into a person who stops her in the tracks and picks her up and says, "Oh Fatima, what has happened to you?" And this person was who? And Fatima is crying with tears in her eyes, unable to explain what's happening. She's only 4 or 5 years old. But seeing this state, she is picked up by this person who she bumps into. He picks her up and says, "What's wrong? What's happened?" And Sayyidah Fatima crying, tries to explain in her own words, 4 to 5 years old, trying to explain what's happening. And this person was none other than Abu Sufyan ibn Harb. Who is he? Is he a friend of the Prophet ﷺ or an enemy? At this moment, he's an enemy. He's one of the Quraysh. He's one of the leaders. It happened by Allah's will that he wasn't there. But at that moment, as heartless as the rest of them were, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put something in his heart saying, "No, whatever happens, he's still my family member. And he's still my blood. And he's still an honorable person. And this is still an innocent child." So he picks Sayyidah Fatima al-Nahab, helps her, wipes her tears, and he brings her to the Prophet ﷺ where he was being attacked. And he screams and shouts at all these people, saying, "What are you doing? Stop this moment." And he defends the Prophet ﷺ. He ushers all these people away, and he helps the Prophet ﷺ come out of this state from all of these filth that they had thrown on the pure body of the Prophet ﷺ. He helps him up, ﷺ, and he brings Sayyidah Fatima back there until the Prophet ﷺ painfully has to stand up with all of these things on his body. He has to wipe whatever he can off, and he has to walk holding the hand of Sayyidah Fatima with just tears in his heart. He has to walk back innocently to Makkah, to his house, to Sayyidah Khadija, who would lovingly enter the Prophet ﷺ, and with her own hands she would help the Prophet ﷺ wash all of these things off his body, ﷺ, and also look after Sayyidah Fatima whilst all of the children of the Prophet ﷺ painfully see this sight of their father. And when Sayyidah Zainab, not on this occasion but many other occasions, would scream, the Prophet ﷺ would even say, "Don't worry, don't worry at this. I know they're trying to humiliate your father. Don't worry, stay strong. Don't worry." And he would even give strength to his daughters who were crying at the pain of what their father was going through, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was the state of how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to live life in Makkah at these early stages of the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this continues and continues day upon day, and time has gone over. Inshallah, from this moment we will continue with the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we end on this note as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is covered in this difficult state, and he sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being helped by his beautiful pure wife as a Khadija, our mother, who looked after our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam so much and gave him strength no matter what the people did. And as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in his own words, that when the world went against me, she supported me, radiyallahu anha. I mean, Allah bless her and grant her the highest stages and bless her beautiful grave, and send the best of blessing from us, and send the best of blessings to our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam by the number of every creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from us as a gift to our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam on this beautiful day of Friday. And we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the true love of our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the true hidayah from the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and protect us from being those who are affected by jahiliyyah and the evils of kufr. Jazakallah khair wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.